All right, welcome to another exciting episode of Vets in Real Estate. This week, I am joined by Clint Jordan, Air Force retired firefighter, now turned real estate pro. So stay tuned and we'll hear his story. All right, well, Clint, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for taking your time to share your story and tell us all about the exciting things that you've done. And you kind of talked about in the intro, you were a firefighter in the Air Force. Some say in real estate we put out a ton of fires as well, but I'm sure there's a little bit of difference between what you did in the Air Force and what you're currently doing now.
And my coach would probably tell you different. We just literally had a conversation about putting out fires this morning. But yeah, it's similar in a sense of it feels like you're always putting out fires. But yeah, 22 years in the Air Force, retired in 17, and got my real estate license, opened a CrossFit gym, and kind of been doing that stuff ever since.
So was real estate always the dream? You're like, as soon as I'm done with the Air Force and I'm retired, I'm gonna go and start selling homes and go from there, or did you kind of just fall into it, luckily or unluckily?
Yeah, zero thoughts, man. I thought I was gonna do 30 years in the Air Force, retire as a chief, and go fish for the rest of my life. I was deployed to the country of Jordan. Woke up to orders to Guam, and I was like, I'm not going back to Guam. It was my first assignment, so I literally hit the retirement button, came back in January. TAPS is our transition class in February, and I was sitting there like, man, I don't have a job. Like, I didn't have any plans. Right, my plan for the last 20-something years is just to do 30 years in the military. So I started posting on Facebook that I was looking for a job, and one of my buddies I used to play Air Force softball with, he's like, bro, get your real estate license. You'll be great at it. That was it. So literally got out of TAPS. I went through Kaplan University, got my license, and since 17. So yeah, 7 years later.
That's interesting. And the more we've done these interviews, the more we've kind of found that there's some people are like, oh yeah, I've got a plan. And so many more are just kind of like, oh yeah, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens.
That was mine was plan B, man. I was like, literally, yeah, sure.
So what did that first couple of years look like for you? You got your license and you just kind of just jumped out and ran, or, you know?
No, that's exactly what happened. But the wife wanted to open a gym at the same time. So I retired and picked up two jobs, right? I built a CrossFit gym. So I was our full-time coach there. I was working CrossFit stuff for 17 hours and then trying to plug away at real estate. And I remember back then, like, there wasn't a lot of coaches and mentors and, people like you that are trying to do cool things. And there wasn't a lot of that. So you were just a realtor. And I'm like, sweet. All I know is to post a bunch. Like, I just know to do a lot of whatever content you can do. But I don't think I sold a home in 8 months. You know what I mean? I pretended like I did on social media, but
sure.
Our first year was tough. And then the gym kind of picked up. We do a cool thing there where we give a free year membership to the gym if you use us as your realtor. We've expanded that quite a bit, man. We're trying to fund the gym 100% for free through our real estate for all veterans in town. So we launched a thing called the Hero Health Project, where now all of our transactions go to the gym, and we're trying to fund that. So soon we'll have that gym open for free for all veterans in town. But
that's an interesting model. We hear a lot of different models, through there, but you're trying to give perks of, let me help you buy your house, and instead of getting you tacos or a pizza, you get a year membership in a gym.
Yeah, you get a $1,500 membership. It's health and fitness. Like, it's giving back is most important to us, and me and the wife are huge in the health and fitness space. Like, we love that. So immediately we thought, you know what, like you said, there's got to be some kind of give back. You give a cutting board, or like you said, a Domino's pizza. I'm like, I would rather just be your friend for at least a year. Here's a free membership. We have a place in town called Mount Carmel Veteran Services Center. Mm-hmm. It's a humongous center, man, and they help everybody from the ground level, like homeless, no food, no money. I used for the behavioral health psychology side when I got out. So we became ambassadors with them. So we give another free membership to them to give to somebody in need. And so we just started tying that into our bigger picture. Our bigger why was like, how do we truly help more veterans in our space? Huh. Besides just buying or selling a home became easy. Sure. Right after that first year or two, all the marketing, and you started to work, but people started knowing who you were. So that became like not the struggle anymore. Now we're like, all right, cool, man. How do we provide more and do more?
Yeah, I can see that. So, and I'm hearing it's services. That seems to be what keeps coming up is service, and how to really serve that community. And I don't know. I've got to say that's one just kind of interesting, just right there. I think a lot of folks talk about it, but I guess at your level, you really are I guess, full service, for lack of a, kind of a corny
Yeah.
real estate term, right? But really are kind of, body, mind, and spirit, and shelter, I guess, for this part. You really are kind of covering all aspects in that.
Yeah, that continuing to serve thing was, we lose our path, I think, sometimes, right? We get out of the military and there's a decision to make in life, and some of us make the wrong ones. And I'm like, man, how do I keep myself accountable? Right? How does Clint stay the course? Like, just keep doing good, man. And the single way for me to do that is just to continue to give and serve. And I'm like, sweet, as long as I'm doing that, then I know that I'm staying the course. I'm true to my values and my whys. My pillars are literally health and fitness and veterans. So as long as I continue to do that, then I know I'm keeping myself straight, and we're hitting our bigger picture why in life too.
Okay. So what did that transition, going through TAPS and all that, what did that actually look like? You got out, you got your license. Hooray. Now what do you do? Like, did you find there was certain groups, certain things you did that kind of helped generate business? You said posting a lot on social media,
Yeah.
which, I think is a given in our career field. But what was that transition really like?
Yeah, it was difficult, man. Here in town, and it's probably everywhere, we have a place called the Small Business Development Center, SBDC. I think most cities have it. And then everywhere has networking groups, right? So I spent, when I retired, if I wasn't at the gym, so we had classes at 5 and 6, 11 and 12, and 5 and 6 at night, every block in between that, I was at Mount Carmel, I was at a networking event, I was at Small Business Development Center. And you're just networking and building relationships, telling people who you are and what you do and your why behind doing it, right? There's 6,000 realtors in town that all say the same thing, like what makes you a bit different. But it was all those networking events, like consistently. My wife was like, dude, you got to sleep at some point. I'm like, not yet. Like, not yet. Like, we got to get to where we need to get. And it was literally the Small Business Development Center. Like, I almost got my own degree out of that place. Like, there's so much value inside of there to teach and learn. And yeah.
So, and you've obviously sat down and kind of grown to a bit of your business now. So what does business look like for you now? Are you still daily out there selling homes, showing homes, doing all that? Or you kind of, got agents out there kind of working for you with the team, or what does the daily start looking like for you now?
Yeah, it's similar. So I still am a producing agent. I have a team of 12 agents here in the Springs. I'm licensed in Colorado Springs. I'm licensed in Florida, so I have a team of 5 there. But on that continuing to serve front, about 2 years ago, I realized there wasn't a lot of groups out there that are truly veterans or military spouses in the real estate field, right? There's a lot of MRP, the military relocation professionals. Sure. There's a lot of groups that love helping vets, but there wasn't just a veteran group. So I launched Milespace, Military Real Estate Network, like 2 years ago, with that same premise, like, how do I help more veterans do better stuff? Like, can I provide marketing? Can we provide a network? So we've grown into that now. Milespace is nationwide. It's 165 or 7 agents, all different brokerages. It's not a recruiting tool for me, but more of a network of people that, we all know, like, and trust each other. We've all served. We've all walked the walk. Again, we provide a little bit of coaching, some marketing and stuff, but so it's grown into that. And still daily operationally still sell a bunch of real estate, and then the TV show stuff too. So
yeah, we talked about that before we started off. We were joking about how the technical issues of not getting everything working here, and
right.
How in the world? I mean, we all see the HGTV, we all see those things out there where, they solve all the world's problems in 30 minutes, but you're actually the face of the show. Like, you're actually out there. How in the world did you get there? I'm sure that's a dream for most agents, is to have their own TV show. You actually did it.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. So, like, the American Dream TV has been around for a few years, right? And there's agents that host it inside of their markets. And again, if you apply yourself and you do work inside of circles, right, people start recognizing that, and you move, and as long as you're doing things for the right reason. So I was inside of ADTV doing all my shows, and then I reached out to the owner of that thing, and I said, hey, man, is there a military version of this, like, focused on the veteran stuff? He's like, there used to be, but it just died out. I'm like, well, let me have it. Like, let me take that back over. I have a military network, like, and Craig, the founder of ADTV, absolutely loves me, and he's like, let's do it, man. So literally, we launched it about 3 months ago. It's Operation American Dream TV. Said it literally starts with my ugly mug. Hey, I'm Clint here, retired Air Force dude, and this is Operation American Dream TV. And then we cut, into somebody else's segment in their community, highlighting veterans and military and organizations that support us. It's really wild. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that seems absolutely fascinating because again, that's not what most agents are doing or seeing, and so I mean, I would assume that you see quite a bit of return on just business just from being seen, right?
Yeah, so that's our key, right? It's not like how do we get our faces in places? Like how do we get in front of more people
Hmm.
consistently? And one of the hardest parts about real estate is people don't want to be on social media consistently. Like we think we could do a post and that somebody's going to remember me, right? Like me and Will talked on a podcast 6 months ago, and hopefully he remembers my face. Well, what did I do to make sure he did that?
Mm.
So for me, it's like cool. How we're out all the time doing those things, right? So we're consistently putting me out in front of people. So that return on investment, like we were so just quick to forget things. So my goal is like to not allow Will to forget who Clint is,
Right.
whether that be through the show, through me texting daily, or whatever that looks like. So yeah, the return on investment is nuts because there's nobody else doing it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I think the stats are somewhere between 7 and 12 times to actually. You have to reach out to somebody before they actually know who you are, and then still more
Right.
times, another 24 times, something like that after until they start to really know, like, and trust you. Like there's
Yep.
a lot of psychology and the constant touches that have to go into it. Um, is just huge. Which here you're actually doing on TV. How did you build up to that point, right? I mean, you're selling houses, you're obviously building the network, but how did you build up to that point where you could sit down and talk to the owner and say, "Let me have the TV show"?
Yeah, it's putting in the work. I think a lot of times we just don't put in the work, right? We expect things to happen, but we don't put in the work. Everybody wants to be a part of the result and not a part of the problem, right? Like I love to be a part of, and if I'm in, I'm in. You get like all of Clint all the time. So when I
Mm.
joined ADTV, I made it another one of my whys. Like I want to be a part of this group. I want people inside of there to know who I am. I want them to see my marketing. So from day one, well, the second episode, the first episode was kind of wonky because it was our first one I did. But after that, like we just started providing value inside of that group, right? If I did a cool reel or a cool video or something, we'd post it inside of ADTV to all the other hosts nationwide saying, "Hey man, check this out." Right.
Mm.
So we just consistently provide value. I think people don't do that enough. Like we're always after us and not what can I do for you. So inside of ADTV, I was like, how can I provide value to the other? Because it benefits me too, right? If I'm
Sure.
friends with you, well, who are you sending your referrals to in the spring? Well, me, because I reach out to you 42.7 touch points, right? In the Facebook group. So then you get into a position where that guy values what you're doing for him and his organization, or her and her organization. So it becomes a little bit more comfortable when you're like, hey man, I really want to do this thing. Most of the times people look back at that like, we haven't done anything leading up to that
Mm.
to get to here, right? I spent a year really, really working and providing whatever I could to Craig to know that, hey man, Clint I'm here for the long haul. Um, you know,
Yeah, you're not like 80% of the realtors that come in and are out of the business in 2 years and couldn't
yeah,
do it,
and
right?
you just have these asks and then people don't give you stuff and then you get mad and you're like, oh man, I don't know. I remember I'd get mad too, like when a friend or somebody I consider a friend would list with somebody else. You're like, oh my God, I just saw Will put his house on the market with, Bob the realtor. And I used to get upset. And then you start realizing, well, what have I done for Will?
Yeah.
Why would Will use me? There's 8,000 realtors here. Like, what have I done to, so I assume all of the responsibility. I'm like, all right, I just have to change that. I got to do better at keeping in touch with Will or the 5,000 people in my town that I want to service. My military people in town, like I don't care about anybody luxury in Colorado Springs. I don't care about, there's no other, like I don't market to them. It's my military people. I just want them to know what we're doing. I want them to know about the Hero Health Project. I want them to know about mill estates nationwide if they need help anywhere.
Hmm.
So that's our only focus is in those lanes.
So then you really do just dive right into just veteran centric or military centric marketing at that point. Is that a kind of a forefront of really just everything in your marketing is look at me?
It's 100%. Yeah, we don't mess around with anything outside of that. So we set our pillars like our whys, like Clint and what,
Mhm.
right? And so it's health and fitness and then veteran. Like those are the things. So if it doesn't fill one of these two buckets or help build relationships inside of there, it's like we don't do it. Like you'll never see. I live in the Broadmoor. It's a luxury market. I don't have one single yard sign in not one of these houses up here.
Hmm.
Like I don't. Zero time to market that. I am military. It's who I am. It's what I do, and it's the people that I want to service. And I think a lot of times realtors, this is for especially for the new ones, like we don't understand the importance of targeting like our specific niche, right? We throw this big net, and I've got 500,000 people in town, and I think I can market efficiently to all of those 500,000. It's not even close to possible.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? But we do that all day. We post something, and I'm hoping that random guy Will sees it. And I'm like, well, Will's a vet, man. Well, have I been on his Vets in Real Estate? Have I reached out to Will? Have I gone to his networking event? Have I provided any value to him?
Yeah, and that's, I do a lot of agent coaching, and that's the same thing I talk to all the time. Especially even though I'm on the commercial side, we'll still talk to them, and I'm a nerd for the demographic side of things and all that. And when you start talking to a residential agent, a lot of times like, who's your target market? And like, anybody trying to buy and sell. And I'm like, that doesn't help. That's a lot of people. Who do they look like? Who do you like to do business with? What do they want to be? Oh, that's fair housing. No. I'm not saying you discriminate. If they live in a neighborhood, they're generally going to be of a certain age. They're generally going to respond to certain things. They're generally going to have some way that they're going to be preferred to be communicated with. Maybe they're downsizing. And I think a lot of times you're doing exactly what I think most agents don't, is that you said, here's my avatar. Here's who I'm going after. How do I communicate in their language?
Yeah, and it is that. Like, if you haven't done an ideal client avatar, an ICA, like, who is it that you want to talk to? Who do you want to work with? Like, I don't want to market to, well, like I said, one, we can't. Two, we don't have the money to it. But, like, I want to, at some point, get to the place where I work with the people that I want to enjoy being around. Same thing, we build our gym. Like, we didn't build the gym for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not for everybody. It's for mainly military folks that did CrossFit, that, you know, have the same values that me and my wife do. Like, we built it specifically for that. So on the marketing side of real estate, like, why can't you do the same thing? Like, if I did American Dream TV 15 years ago, right? I was still in the military, but my kids were huge in baseball, softball. Like, every single one of my episodes would be at that ball field. I would just have kids sliding all over the place, dirt, and like, Will, you'd be like, dude, did you get that? I'm like, I sure did, Will. Your son's going to be on TV, bro. You know what I mean? And I'd be doing the snack bar lady because I knew all of those people.
Right.
I knew where we partied. I knew where we hung out on Saturdays. Like, I wouldn't focus anywhere else. Those 200 people would be my 200 best friends.
Right. No,
that's all that I would. Don't need the 10 million other people. Like, I need to sell 50 houses.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's exactly it. It's interesting. You really point that out just very clearly, where I think we've had other guests that have tried to kind of allude to it, was your network is really going to be who you're going to sell to, and you need to be in a relationship with every single one of them. It's not a one and done. And I think that's what the reason why that 80% of folks that don't last in the industry, a lot of it is simply because they're one and done. They do the one transaction. They never talk to them again.
Yeah, they lose that relationship. They never built a relationship.
Yeah, and then you're trying to rebuild or build your business every single year you're in the industry, instead of building upon your success.
Yeah, it's a transaction. Like, there's a lot of transactional. Like, I'm just looking for that next deal, right? I got this huge ask. I just want somebody to let me sell or buy the home with them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I want a whole lot more than that. Like, let's do that. That's cool.
Yeah.
But let's build some relationships, you know? And like I said, it's value on our end. Like, how do we provide value back to that person all the time?
So I'm curious, going back, because your mindset's a little bit different. So I'm curious, was this just your mindset always from your time in the service and moving in there, or did some of this shift as you kind of came into your first brokerage and kind of had the right mentor that was going through there? I mean, was there little yes, little no of both?
Yeah, probably a little yes and a little no of both. I did an interview somewhere, and they had asked about, like, my mom. Like, yeah, something about my mom. And I just started rambling off about, like, how do we get our entrepreneurship and who we are, you know? And I think it's my 20 years in the military. And then as I was answering the questions, I'm like, it was growing up. Like, my mom owned businesses. My mom understood relationships, and my stepdad, and value. And once I retired, my daughter said, oh, Daddy, you have your wings now. Like, you could fly. Right. And like, that hit me like a ton of bricks, man. I was like, I can. Like, everything I get to do now is on me. Right. It's not on the military. No one's telling me anymore. And like, I do have my wings. So I took that, and I'm like, all right, cool, man. What can we do with that?
Yeah.
And then over time, you start digging the niche, because I didn't have a coach for many years. You know, nobody told me, hey, dude, quit throwing the big net thing. It's not going to work for you. You know, 2 clients a year isn't going to cut it, bro. Like, quit doing that. So you start fine tuning, reading books, and get some coaches. And so over time, the last 2 to 3 years is when I really, really fine tuned, like, the niche thing. Like, I identified my why, like my whys. I don't think we have one, but I identified those, right? My health and fitness, and then the veteran space. And then we just wiped everything else out and said, hey, man, everything that we're going to do goes into these 2 buckets.
So what did it look like as you're transitioning out and looking for that first brokerage? Did you interview a whole bunch of people? Or you just kind of like, all right, that's it, I'm done? I mean, how did that process look?
Yeah. So the first brokerage was that guy that reached out to me and said, "Hey, bro, get your license." I
Okay.
got my brokerage here. That didn't last very long. He was a little ways away from me, and it was all the wrong reasons. And then I bounced around. So like I got to one. There was another buddy in town said, "Hey, come work here." It was a smaller brokerage, and I felt like I outgrew that real quick. Again, I didn't get a mentor early. I didn't get a coach early. I relied on my military stuff. Like I could do this, right? I got this. I don't need anybody to help coach me. I don't need a therapist.
Sure.
I don't need any of those things, which I could have knocked off 5 years of, wasting 5 years of time had I done that. And then so I outgrew one and moved to the next. And then I got to a space where I'm like, I want to build a team, and the brokerage that I was at didn't have any team. So I bounced around dependent on, where I was kind of at the time my real estate game and then where I needed to be to learn more. I owned a Keller Williams satellite office out here at some point, and you just keep growing. I love the growth mindset. I love surrounding myself with people that think bigger. And, again, it's way more than just a transaction. Once you can get past that point, you're like, all right, cool. The transactions happen, but how can we influence more and change more and impact more?
Yeah, and that's one, coming from a commercial guy, sometimes a little bit of animosity between the commercial and residential mindset, right?
Yeah.
And I totally was that early in my career. And then I started looking and understanding the business side of residential, understanding it's not just about buying and selling a home, how some of these really high productive teams are doing a lot of things that you're talking about, putting the process and procedures in place, understanding their why, finding that ideal avatar, going through all those things, and then watching them explode and realizing that they're just as smart as anybody else, if not
Yeah.
smarter sometimes, but they just focused.
Yeah. When we bring in somebody on the team, we sit them down and I go over that avatar with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I won't bring somebody on the team that has a very similar avatar to another team member.
Oh, so each person in your team will have a different avatars. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. At least ideal. Like we have a bunch of veterans, right? But like I'm in the health and fitness space and Air Force. And then I've got another veteran dude that works a lot of the VA stuff. So he understands the health side of the VA stuff. So I'm like, cool. Cause then I could help him market that. Right.
Mm.
If it's me, you, and we're all three firemen or all three Green Berets or whatever, then we're all marketing similarly.
Yeah. We're going to fight.
I can't help you grow. Yeah. So when we do our avatar, I'm like, sweet, man, what is your space? What is your lane? And then I coach you to that. I'm like, all right, cool. Then go do that. Like my daughter's 20 years old and she's just started in the like things to do for people under 21 or people that don't drink. Like that's going to be her space and first time home buyer stuff. So cool. I'm like, our content's easy now because she knows where she has to go, what she has to do. Right.
So how I've got daughters as well and kind of think of them coming to the business. How has that been now that, I mean, effectively you're building a multi-generational business now at this point, right? How has that transition been?
It's the most amazing thing ever. Yeah, it's incredible. We built, so two things inside of Real. We have the Mill Estate Network and then the Jordan Group, which is cool because the Jordan Group, we keep here local in Florida and then she can just come up and take it. Mill Estate, I stayed, nationally as a network. So if I retire from production, then Kaylee can just slide up. She's been doing it with me since, she's been putting in yard fence since 2017. You know what I mean?
Mine too.
Yeah. So, but her, like, I don't, the difference between when she was 18 and 20, like she just turned 20 in November. But she's just an incredibly driven, like smart, and she's getting the business side of things. She's understanding the work that needs to be done in it. Like, and it's cool because now I get to spend more time with my daughter.
Yeah.
So that's a win. Like she's normally here throughout the day and people are like, bro, don't you ever get tired of your daughter? I'm like, no.
No, I mean, I think that's the fun thing too, is as they get older, right? You start seeing them less and less and less. And there was a stat saying something like you spend 90% of your time with your kids before they're 18. And then it's like the rest of their life is like 10% of the time. I don't know I've got an adult son and we see him maybe a little more often than that stat would say, but knowing that that's the direction. I mean, yeah, it's awesome to know that they're there. You're not sick of them. Some days, I'm sure there's some days dad comes out and you're like, just do this.
Oh, 100% of the time. And she knows, and she's all over. She's like, all right. And I'm like, sorry, pumpkin. Yeah. And my son's 24. He's in town too. It's similar.
All right.
Right. You see him on Thanksgiving and when he needs money or something. So yeah, it's sad that, you have them, like you said, 99% of your time until they're 18 and then it's just like, they're gone. And you're like, man, I don't want that. Like, I'd rather her be around. So I was very happy when, she's seen all the things that we do and, that she wanted to, I think a lot of kids don't follow in the footsteps in real estate and mortgage because they see their parents struggle a bit. And,
sure.
it's hard. Like there's no question about that. If people are like, man, I want to get in real estate because I could be a millionaire. Well, you can, but geez, dude, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. There's balance isn't a thing. Real family time. I sold 4 houses on Super Bowl Sunday. Like I get my clients out on those days because I'm like, hey, sellers don't want to be, if I can get you on a contract today on Saturday before Super Bowl Sunday, like they're going to accept that offer. Like that's me. There's no, like, we're just out, and it takes a bit of dedication, a bit of work. So I think a lot of kids coming up are like, I don't want to do all that. I'm only 20. And my daughter's like, I'm in. Like, do this.
And you're highlighting the struggle. And I think a lot of times, especially with real estate agents, we don't do a good job at showing, for the lack of a better term, the suck kind of behind what it's like. It's not all closing and pictures with your clients and being on TV. And that's not the average agent. Like, what is the 90% of the time behind the scenes? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's a struggle, man. Like I said, I think NAR did average thing. It was like 90% of realtors sell between 1 and 4 houses a year. That's a lot of work for not a lot of effort for not a lot of work. But it's 5 people are like, bro, you're on, like, we comment tag like 20, 30 people a day on every platform. Our content creation it's bananas. Like my video dude's like, let's go, and every Monday we content batch 30, 40 videos, and your networking events. Like it's nonstop to get to a place where people know who you are. And then once you're there, then it becomes a little bit different, right? You can start changing things a little bit. And, but to get to that point, man, it's brutal to be a realtor. And in towns, like other realtors aren't nice sometimes.
What?
You know what I mean?
What
and I don't mean to be talking negatively about realtors out there.
No.
But it's a very competitive, and I hate the word competitive because you're not competing with me. Like the only way that ever happens is if I allow it, right? We're only competing if I'm like, all right, cool, we have a competition. Otherwise, we're not. But it's a very cutthroat kind of business, man. And friends you thought were friends, and people that you thought supported you, and you're like, wow, you gotta have some thick skin, and you really got to put in some hours to get to a place where people know who you are and trust you.
Yeah, and I think that's the struggle for so many coming in too, is just putting that effort in, putting all that, knowing where to put that effort in. I think is a lot of it. You could spin your wheels for the first 2 years. I know when I came in, I did the opposite. I was doing everything. I sold houses. I did apartment locating. I was doing commercial property management, doing leasing for commercial. I mean, if I could make $1, I was trying to do it. It wasn't until I started like focusing and realized, man, apartment locating stinks. I'm not going to do this anymore. And you know what? I showed one couple 45 houses and I hated every single one of those showings. Maybe residential's not for me. Let me start focusing in commercial. Then it started becoming easier, where I think the opposite was like, if I do everything, I've got so much more to talk about. But then you're talking about the same things that everybody else is talking about without the in-depth of, in my world, why does Starbucks prefer 6-car or 8-car parks versus 6-car parks in the lane? I mean, that's something interesting. Why is there a difference? That's the stuff where you really start differentiating yourself because you're that expert in that niche.
Yeah. And that's the important bit about finding that space, whatever that space is for you. Again, if it's softball and baseball, then cool, be that person. There's hundreds of parents at that ball field every night that want to talk, that are talking real estate stuff. So find your niche and dig into it, because it does make you an expert in there. People start seeing that.
Sure. So tell me more about real estate in itself. I know you mentioned you got 165, 67 or so members. You guys are doing some coaching and just building a network, but tell me more about, I guess, what the advantages of joining, why? I mean, I guess you told us the why, but tell us more about it.
Yeah. So the why was, like we covered at the beginning, I just wanted a network of people that I personally knew, like, and trusted, that were in fact veterans, right? Nothing against having an MRP cert and nothing against wanting to support your vets. Like, I love all that stuff, but there's a difference between somebody who wore the uniform and somebody who didn't. So I wanted to build a network of people who did. So I sit down, I vet and interview each one of the agents coming in. We limit kind of in market, so it's never oversaturated or anything. But what it became was a referral network of, like I said, 168 agents or something nationwide, all different brokerages, but 160 agents that know, like, and trust each other, that help each other grow. Again, we provide marketing and coaching and all that cool stuff inside of the group. But ultimately, it was just another way to provide, like, value. Like, I can do things to help you in your market. Right. Like, I'm decent, at video and marketing and coaching. Then if I could build a network and provide that same value to 160 other agents and they do more business, well, cool, because they're veterans and military spouses and their clients are veterans. So we are just continually to do more for us, right? Us helping us help us. So that
Yeah.
was a premise behind it, man. And I'm like, I could just grow this and continue to interview people and continue to vet to make sure we have the right agents who are in the right spots to take care of our military clients.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I know we see similar programs out there. I know before we had come around, I was familiar with middle estate. I had heard it before. We're not deep into it. Again, I'm not the target market for what you're
Yeah,
looking for, but at least being aware of it. And then it was kind of funny as we got connected. I was like, oh crap, that's this dude. This is cool.
that's cool.
Kind of
That's really
thing.
cool.
Which is fascinating that you can grow and again, you're just kind of focused on your why and staying true to it. Have you struggled at times staying within that why? Something shiny's over here and you want to jump out and go get
No,
it? Or
man.
you've been,
No, that's a big old negative, dude. So once you identify it, like we do goal boards every year, and once you identify that why, like for me personally, I'm a very I don't know what word I'm looking for, structured kind of dude. But yeah, once I identified that, and you find too that once you do, like people are like, man, you do like a lot of things, right? Like how do you have the energy to I'm up at 4 and then I'm in the ice bath at 4:30 and then I'm at the gym at 5 and then
Mhm.
you do all these things, but it's because they're always focused on the same two things, right? I find if I scurry out of here to that shiny penny thing, my energy drops, I get tired, and I'm like, why am I beat up today? Like, what did I do different today?
Mm.
Right? A couple years back, I'm like, what did Clint just do that is messing with this? I'm like, oh shit, I chased down that, right? There's
Yeah.
this other lead gen program where I wasted 4 hours at this networking event and then I beat myself up for it. So just over time, you just know. And I have an assistant, Cassie, who manages my calendar and my emails. And like, if it's not in one of those two lanes and or something that can help these things, then it doesn't get on my calendar. Like we just don't address it.
Hmm. That's awesome. And that's I think that's where so many people struggle is staying true to what really keeps you energized and all that as well. If you had to sit back and go back and look at your career, look at the transition, coming out of the Air Force and into the, into real estate, I'm sure there's things that you would want to go through because the pain made it a great teacher. But is there anything in there that you would do differently or say, I would have rather listened to the conversation instead of go through that pain again?
Yeah, I think found a good coach. I think, but it's hard to find the right one, right? Like we don't know what it is that we need to know when we first start real estate.
Mm.
So it's hard to say, who a good coach was or what a good coach is. But like when I was in the military, I 100% probably needed to go see a therapist, right? Like you're just all over the place. You're just scatterbrained. You don't know, but it's always like, no, it's a big negative. It's, has a negative connotation. We don't go see that because we know what we're doing. And when I got out, it was kind of that same mindset. Like I got this, like I'll figure this out. Well, that was a wasted 3-4 years of figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
When I could have invested, I could have found somebody that, I clicked with that was good in that coaching space. I could have really helped me streamline things. So once that happens, like once I identified my why 2.5 years ago, I got the right coach. We sat down for 30 minutes and said, hey man, here's what we're doing and here's where we're going. Like once that happens, like everything, just the sky's the limit. Like your energy is through the roof. The amount of things you can do and do are just totally different as opposed to just spinning all day, like the big net theory and like, yeah. So I think the one thing I would have changed had I thought about it or known about it was pick up a decent coach. But again, there's so many bad ones that it's hard to say that I would have changed that.
So how did you go about choosing the right coach then? So somebody coming in, taking your advice, okay, I need to get a coach right away. You're right. There are 8 million coaches out there. And I joke oftentimes that if you can't make it in real estate, you can make money selling things to people in real estate. Like that's the secret sauce. You make more money selling stuff to real estate agents. How do you figure out, I say that as I sell stuff to real estate agents too, but how do you go about and figure out how do you go out and figure out the right coach that's for you and who's just not full of crap and actually can help you grow? How did you figure that out?
Yeah, I think we have to be strong. We have to understand what we need, right? And then we have to be strong in choosing that. So like I use the therapy person as an example. So when I got out, a lot of things were happening in the world. And I finally decided, hey man, I probably need to go sit down with a behavioral health person at Mel Carmelson. So I sat down and the first 3 of them were just trash, man. But like our normal mindset is like, this person knows more than I do, right? This is the therapist. And then, but if we're smart enough to understand like where their questions are coming from and then what I need help with, like those weren't aligning properly. So I'm like, I don't need, like, you're the wrong person for me, right? So I
Mm,
just, hey, I need a new therapist. Got another person. I'm like, I don't know that we truly, like, you're not listening to what I want, right? A coach sells what they want you to know, right? That's the problem I
sure.
think with coaching in our world is that they're not for you. They're for them. They coach to a product or to a script, and then they throw it at you like, did you make your 400 calls this week? I'm like, well, no, I hate making calls. Well, you have to make calls to make transactions. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't want to ever make a call. Can you coach me without me ever making a call, right? So if we understand what that coach is and what we need, then I'll tell you real quick. Like I probably interviewed 5 or 10 different coaches before I found Tyler, who literally was like, "Hey man, what is it that you want? Like, what are we trying to do for you?" Then I'm like, "Oh, cool." And then when I told him, there wasn't a bunch of roadblocks or negatives. Like, well, we probably need to go this route first because you're newer, or we probably need to go here because you have all these other things going on. Tyler took what I said that I needed to do and wanted to do, and where I needed his help,
Mm,
right? If it's content, if it's marketing, if it's digging into my niche, if it's cold calling it, whatever that is that you need work on, ask that coach, can they provide, when someone says, hey, how do I find a good veteran realtor? Ask them, are they a veteran? Right? Like ask those questions. We
sure.
just don't ask them questions. So all that, yeah. So that's how I found, and then I found Tyler, and you just know at that point, all right, dude, this guy can help me scale up. He can answer the questions that I'm asking and not just feed me a bunch of scripted stuff. So
Yeah, you may
I've never made a single cold call in my entire career.
you may just got Tyler a few more clients after that testimonial, right? So may,
Yeah, reach out. He's literally, and the other thing is he's never even been a realtor. Like he's Tyler Mount is his name. The guy's the most incredible person on the planet. And if you look at us both on paper, like probably weren't supposed to be friends. He's, some Broadway dude. He's gay and all this other nonsense. And me and Tyler just went, and then first connection, I was like, oh, this guy's legit. Like he just gets, like he gets me. Like he
yeah.
literally is what Clint had to say. And then, like I said, since then, man, the sky is literally the limit. He's changed the trajectory of all of the things that I've done.
Mm,
Whereas other coaches, if you feel stifled by them and if they're not answering your questions, you probably find a different coach. But
yeah.
I think it's that simple.
Fair enough. So as we're wrapping up, is there any thoughts you'd want to leave with somebody who's looking at making that transition from the military on over, or that might be in that first or second year and just trying to get that traction to get going? Is there any advice you'd give to them?
Yeah, man, like figure out what you want to do with real estate and what you want out of it, and then who those clients are for you, commercial, like whatever that space is that you want to be in, and then just dive into that. Like, don't waste a lot of time and energy and the million other spaces out there. Find out what that is. If it's luxury, then be luxury, man. Go get a nice watch and good pair of shoes. Find a fancy car and do luxury. Like be that person, right? Like I can't claim to want to be in a Porsche club and not have a Porsche. So like if you're wanting to be in the veteran space, like be a veteran, but find that niche, find what it is that you want to do, and then really, really dig into that. Like go all in, man. Burn the boats and jump in that niche because no one else is doing it. Like no one else is spending the time inside of there.
Mm,
They're all throwing that big net. So it's not very hard once you dig in and spend that year or so. Just say, hey man, here's me. I'm at every networking event. Everybody's going to see Clint's face a billion times this year.
No, that's great advice. Well, Clint, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being willing to share your story and what you've been through. Definitely an enjoyable interview, and hopefully you don't mind us reaching back out again for any questions that come in, or anybody that does have questions reaching out just to kind of get a little more guidance and help.
Yeah, for sure. So the transition bit's difficult and scary. So if they got any questions, yeah, I think you have our website, or I can give you my phone number or however they need to reach out. But I'm always available.
Sounds good. Well, Clint, again, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, sir.